Councillors in the gallery, can I have your attention, please? Good evening, everybody. I welcome you to this meeting of the Cardinia Shire Council. Please note that this meeting is being webcast live over the internet on the Council's website. Councillors will be available after the meeting if any members of the gallery wish to discuss issues of interest. Start with a prayer. We'll commence with the meeting with a prayer. Almighty God, we humbly request that you bestow your blessings upon this council, direct and prosper our deliberations to the advancement of your glory and the betterment of the peoples of Cardinia Shire. Amen. The Cardinia Shire Council respectfully acknowledges that we are on the traditional land of the Bunurong and the Wurundjeri people and pay our respects to their elders past, present and future. We have some apologies this evening. We've received apologies from Councillor Jodie Owen and Councillor Michael Schilling for tonight's meeting. I'd like to note a Queen's Birthday Award that we've had within our Shire that reflects to us personally. Before moving the agenda, I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge a former councillor, Gary Runge, who received an OAM in recent Queen's Birthday honours. Gary served as a mayor for 2 consecutive terms in 2004 and 2005 and is thoroughly deserving of this recipient of this order of the Australian Medal. And I want to congratulate Gary, and I'll send him off with a letter of congratulations today. Councillor Ross.
Mr Mayor, I'm pretty sure, didn't Councillor Runge serve for 1 term? Two terms.
2 terms, okay.
It had over 3 years in the paper.
You're out of order, Councillor, that's right. It's okay. I'll take your apologies, Councillor Ross.
I sincerely apologise. I'm wrong.
Minutes of previous meetings. Can I have a motion, please, to adopt the minutes of the meetings as listed? Can I have a mover? Councillor Ryan. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Springfield. All those in favour? For? Against? Carried. Declaration of interests. Councillor Brown, I understand you wish to make a declaration for tonight's meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I have a direct interest in the units in Dame Paddy Avenue that are detailed in the Heritage Amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. We will address that when we get to it shortly. Councillors, have we any other declarations this evening? Ordinary business. The Council conducts its meetings according to the consent agenda. Councillors have advised of the matters for consideration this evening and that they wish to discuss or debate. The remaining items will be adopted without discussion. Items withdrawn for discussion this evening are Item 1, the Pakenham Heritage Amendment C242 Panel Report Recommendations. I need someone to withdraw this. I recognise Councillor Ross. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ryan. Councillor Brown, would you like to move out of the leave the gallery for the chamber for the moment? Thank you. Move to speak. Councillor Ross.
I move the officer recommendation, but the reason I've withdrawn this item is to give Councillor Brown the opportunity to declare his conflict of interest so he can leave the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. A second to speak at all? Councillor Ryan.
I support what Councillor Ross said. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Back to you, Councillor Ross. You have anything to add? Oh, sorry, Councillor Ross. I'll go to Councillor Brett Owen for further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question to General Manager of Livable Communities, Ms Tracy Parker. It relates to the Pakenham RSL. Councillors received an email today from the Pakenham RSL raising concerns about what this amendment means to them. Can the General Manager just sort of provide some assurance to the Pakenham RSL about how this affects them, if you can, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the RSL did submit an email through this afternoon, obviously expressing concerns about the heritage overlay being placed on their property. The RSL Club did make a presentation to the independent planning panel, and the panel came back and did not propose any alterations to the provisions that we had recommended affecting the RSL. However, I would say to the RSL that if they do want to do any works or additions or any alterations to that property, then council will certainly be open to having discussions with them. Having the heritage overlay does not prohibit them from doing any works on the site. It just requires them to seek planning approval, and that would involve certainly having discussions with us about that.
Thank you, General Manager. I just thought that was important to really speak to that question that was forwarded to councillors today. So that's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Owen, and I apologise for missing out on you there. It was a good question, and thank you, Tracy Parker, for the answer. Very good. Any other speakers on this item? That being so, can I go back to Councillor Ross, the mover?
Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. All those in favour, signify in the usual manner. Carried. Can we just allow Councillor Brown to come back into the gallery, please, into the chamber? Thanks. Thank you, Tom. Welcome back, Councillor Brown. That's nice to see your smiling face. Okay, we'll move on. Item 3, adoption of the budget 2019-20, withdrawn by Councillor Brett Owen. Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the officer's recommendations. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ross. Back to you, Councillor Brett Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ross. Tonight we adopt the budget, the 1920 financial year budget, and as I said when we first introduced the draft budget back in April, I said this has been the most inclusive for councillors anyway, thorough process that I've experienced in my time on council, which is about 14 years. And I think that is thanks to the officers and the CEO who've implemented obviously changes to the budget process and councillors' involvement. So I just want to once again state that 7 months of work. I want to thank, there was 9 submissions to the budget, and I thank every single one of those submitters for submitting their submission. Some submitters elected to speak to their submission, which was great. We've got some of those in the gallery tonight, and I think it's really good that those people made the time to present, because it did have an impact on councillors. The others were also treated with respect and was addressed appropriately, but to have people in the chamber talking about it, which was great. So I just want to quickly go through some of those submissions. Pauline Murphy from the Emerald Museum and the Benilius Heritage Park, what a fantastic asset that is. Their request for additional $20,000 is included in the budget, and council will work with them in relation to funding, looking at other options for a interactive touchscreen. Robert Elston, Cricket Victoria, submitted to saying concerns about the Cardinia and Cardinia cricket nets. And the proposed response, as in the paperwork, is that council is doing a lot of work in this space. This 10 grand that's in the draft budget will do a thorough assessment of all cricket pitches across our Shire, because we know it's not just those 2 that was mentioned in the submission, but there's others. Beaconsfield as well has got concerns, and I think using this $10,000 in the budget to make those assessments and then deliver a priority works package for the forthcoming capital works programs. In relation to Emerald Lake Park and using facilities for hire, we noted that submission. We had the Pakenham Little Athletics Club, Brian, Scott, Nemo, I think that's correct, presented to us saying that they need new improved facilities for Little Ass urgently. And we have responded that, we have noted that, and we do have a master plan for the IYU reserve, so we've brought forward the design of that facility at IYU to 1920. So that program will start and we'll see that facility delivered earlier, probably 3 years earlier than what we were expecting before the draft budget went out. So I think that is a fantastic effort. We all know how that Little Ass Club is well utilised and probably not utilised to the extent because of the facilities that you've got. So this will be a regional facility as well. We know we've got other Little Ass clubs in our Shire, so that will cater for them if they want to use it as well, but obviously Pakenham will be a key stakeholder. So that is a great result and great outcome. We heard from the Worrell Reserve, Howard Winter. Is it my mic, is it? My mic. Okay, thank you. So Mr. Winter explained to Council in his submission that there was desperately need for additional funds for the Worrell Reserve, that being lighting, high ball nets and coaches boxes. So Council agreed that this needs to be addressed now or in the next financial year. So we've added additional $234,000 towards that project. Mr. Gareth Sheen from the Officer Rec Reserve presented to that night, requesting for additional $324,000 to complete all the outstanding works, which includes lighting, high ball nets, AFL goals, and landscaping and footpaths. We have agreed in part of that submission that we're allocating $62,000 basically for the goalposts and the nets, and we'll work with the club in the coming year to look at other alternative financial funding sources for the lighting. That is not such a priority at the moment because that oval won't be ready for use for probably another 12 months, and they've already got lighting there that's is to a standard but not to the high standard. So we'll work with the club in relation to delivering that. Getting through there, we had a response from I think that covers the submissions. So it is with great pleasure that we have amended the budget to address those things. But I just wanted to talk about some other things in this budget. The Officer Rec Reserve Multi-Use Pavilion. In this, through the draft budget process, we've increased the allocation for this facility from before the draft budget went out. That was $150,000, a mere $150,000 for such a community facility that will be well utilised. That wasn't even in line with the sports facility standards. The $150,000 was a figure that was pulled out for a particular reason. So I'm very pleased that we will allocate $400,000 to the Officer Rec Reserve Multi-Use Pavilion, which will be in line with the draft sports facility standards policy, which will be talked about tonight. So that's 100 square metres totalling $400,000. So that's in line with that position of council that's in the draft budget. We're going to finish off the Emerald Netball Pavilion, long overdue. I know we built the court, so we look forward to the pavilion being built. The community hall at Cockatoo and the senior citizens improvements, that's funded. We're delivering the Gembrook Reserve. We've talked about that for about 3 years, but we're delivering that finally. The Emerald Community, the Hills Hub is going to be finalised with this budget. We're going to see McGregor Road, Pakenham bypass interchange upgraded using obviously the federal money as well. Equestrian strategy. So it will continue on, and I'll allow councillors to talk about their subjects that they want to talk about. So I will go to the seconder. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mayor. I'll go to the seconder. Seconder to speak, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few highlights in this I'd like to mention is I think the keeping inside the rate cap is fantastic, considering we're going to do a record infrastructure spend and still have a surplus. I think that the credit for doing a lot of this work needs to go to the new CEO and our senior management team too, who worked extremely hard to take on a program that was very, very big in the past, that was well run, but to take it on and having managers having to move, and as some people left, they've done an exceptional job. So I think that needs to be commended for starters. Also too, I'm just going to highlight, thank you Councillor Owen for highlighting some of the things in this budget. I must say the Pakenham Athletics Club, their facility, as long as I can remember, for probably at least 25 years, has remained basically extremely basic. Grass track, nothing's been upgraded. I must say their clubhouse couldn't be called a clubhouse. It is really just a storage shed, that's all it is. And the toilets, you couldn't describe how poor they are for a group to have to use. And that's one of the reasons why council considered moving some things around, because you can only spend money once. And the Officer District Park Master Plan, which is really only a field at the moment and isn't being built, was going to cost $4.7 million. And to move the athletics club, including an all-weather track and a pavilion, is $5.1 million to IYU. And it's exactly right as Councillor Owen said. How would you ever expect to improve anything if it's the way it was 25 years ago with the competition that's out there? And with the roads the way they are, why would parents drive their kids out further to join an athletics club? They'd just drive right past ours, which just isn't good enough. Now, by moving this around, all we've done is we aren't saying we're not going to do the Officer District Park. We're going to just defer that by 3 years, and we've moved the athletics club forward by 3 years. So I think that is a really, really good move. I think this group has been so patient. They've been, I suppose you could almost put them in the same ballpark as groups like the Pakenham Auto Club and the Cooey-Rupp Motorcycle Club. If you looked at their facilities, we had to do something, and they have been so patient. So I just can just empathise with them, and I just know this will build their club, and there will be so many kids who benefit from this. And it's another alternate thing. We spend a lot of money on the traditional sports, and we need to spin it round so everybody gets some benefits. Anyway, I just want to just say I think that was a fabulous decision by council. It's never hard to change what you're going to do in a budget for something else. So I commend my fellow councillors for embracing that argument that was run on that case, and I'll leave some other developments for other people to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other speakers on this subject, on the budget? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I also would like to congratulate the CEO and the senior officers for the preparation of this budget and the way it was presented to councillors. I'm a new councillor. First year just meant a lot of numbers. Second year I understood it a bit better. But this year it was pointed out, lots of things were put up there that we could discuss, agree on, explained, more importantly. And again, congratulations to those people that put that together, ably led. A couple of things out of the budget, in particular the capital works I'd like to talk about. The capital works program for 1920 totals $61 million compared to 67 forecast for 18-19. This program is funded by council cash of 27 million, grants and contributions of 19 and 10 million respectively, and 3 million borrowings. The new projects in the capital works program total $28.728 million. major projects, including land acquisitions of $6 million, James Bath Recreation Reserve $5.5 million, McGregor Road and Freeway Interchange $3 million, Lang Lang Recreation Facility 2.7, Cumley Banks Reserve Pavilion 2.5, and it goes on and on and on, that we're doing really good work in the capital works area, as well as the infrastructure work that this Shire particularly needs in respect of roads in particular, and somebody else can talk about that later. But I commend the budget, and I commend the gallery to look at it. It's online. It's quite transparent, and I commend the budget to people to have a look in their spare time. It's quite a bulky document, but well worth a read. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Well said. Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to my fellow councillors. Councillor Brown almost took the words out of my mouth. What I was the point I was going to bring up, which was to share my appreciation towards our new CEO, who took us through a very inclusive process towards developing this budget. So, under her leadership and with the rest of our fantastic managers and officers that we have here on council, this was a very inclusive and thorough process from the end of last year into what we see before us now, and it helped us to identify the needs within the community. It helped us as councillors to identify our priorities and make the tough decisions between which things are going to move forward and which things have to be held back to later. It was a pragmatic approach of not being overconfident in what we could deliver and being practical to make sure that we can deliver the things that we have outlined in this budget. So again, I'd like to share my appreciation to our CEO, Carol, and all our fantastic staff here, because it was a very good process to go through in developing this. So I think we should all be proud of it. So thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Well said, Councillor Springfield. Any other speakers on this item? No other. I'd just like to reinforce the respect and the accolades you're giving to our CEO and the staff, who've done a fantastic job to bring this forward and made it so clear that we could understand. As Councillor Brown said, rightly so, that made it clear probably for the first time that we've had it open, and we've had open discussions on this budget to get it nice and clear, and so we understand what's going on. So it's been a great process, and I've really enjoyed the process. But the other thing about Councillor Brett Owen and Councillor Ross, the first time I've ever seen you making the gallery cry for the first time. And it's tears of joy this time that I see before me. If only we could get this on camera, swing the camera around and put on IYU of how happy they are. And that's what we do as councillors. It's just to make everybody happy. And that's what our job is. It's a difficult task sometimes, but in this case, it's a really great result. And I want to thank my fellow councillors for that. Was a really right decision to make at the time, and all of us getting together and unanimously doing that was a good result, I think, for our community. I'll go back to the mover, Councillor Brett Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors, for you talking to this item. I just wanted to reiterate what Councillor Ross did say. We made some very hard decisions that night after the submissions were given to us. The Officer District Park has to be moved, pushed back 3 years, and we know there'll be some people in our community that will not like that decision, because that is going to be an awesome park for the future of not just Officer but the Shire. And we know there was users of that facility that will be disappointed, no doubt about that. But when you look at the reasons why we made that decision and the impacts that that's having on people even tonight, you can see that is well and truly needed. I just want to note that we are increasing our staff levels. We are a growing council. In 2018, there was an article in the Herald Sun that Cardinia Shire had the lowest proportion of its budget allocated to staff amongst all metro councils. Council is committed to delivering a significant capital works program, as we all talked about, over $61 million. A lot of work needs to be done, so you need staff to deliver that, because we know we haven't. In previous years, we've had a big big goal, but we haven't kicked that goal and delivered that infrastructure. We know that there is carryover work, so we need the staff to deliver that. So this means that staff involved in stakeholder management, design, construction, maintenance and governance of all facilities need to grow as well. For instance, in the access and inclusion position, that is a new one. Before council through this budget appoints this officer, we relied on a state funded position, Metro Access. That is no longer that funding is no longer available, and it was very, very important for councillors that we maintain our focus on access and inclusion and have a dedicated Cardinia Shire officer working in this space. So I'm pleased that that position is created as a dedicated access and inclusion position, which is great. I wanted to mention just a couple of other projects that are really important. The Tumac Reserve, Recreation Reserve. We know that through the federal election there was announcements made, so council is committing to that project, whether it's with council funds as well, to deliver that final outcome. We know that Tumac Reserve, we talked about Little Ass, but we know Tumac Reserve is not up to scratch. So to have that upgraded using the federal money is a great outcome. We're also going to see the Timbertop Children's Facility commence construction in 1920. With that being, we believe it will open in January 2020. That's what the papers are saying. But we know that that's important because a school is coming to Timbertop very, very soon, and that's important to have a kindergarten in Timbertop as well. We're committed to the Princess Highway intersections, $1 million to go towards the federal announcement of a number of intersections along the Princess Highway. So I commend all those people who put in submissions, and thank you, councillors, for your work in this submission, of course the officers, and I move the budget and hope that it gets adopted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Well said. Well done. All those in favour? For? Carried. Item 4, adoption of the council plan and council plan actions. Withdrawn by Councillor Letitia Wilmot. Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council 1 adopts the attached council plan for the period of 2019 to 2023, incorporating the updated strategic resource plan for the period ending 2019-2023, and 2, adopts the attached council plan actions for the same period.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ross. Back to you, Councillor Wilmot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. As I say, I'm moving that we adopt the council plan, the strategic resource plan and the council plan actions for 2019 to 2023. The council plan plays a high-level role to guide the organisation. Council's vision for the Shire, as outlined in the council plan, is for Cardinia to be developed in a planned manner to enable present and future generations to live healthy and productive lives and to enjoy the richness of the diverse and distinctive characteristics of the Shire. To achieve this, we require a well-managed and sustainable budget to be presented, and we have just adopted that. But this is just one element of delivering the council plan, and we are able to and if we are to enable future generations to live healthy and happy, productive lives within Cardinia, we also need to have an effective council planning framework to provide guidance to us, the current council, as well as future councils in decision making. The council plan presented tonight provides that framework and guidance. When read together, the council plan document and budget document will give residents a detailed insight in how council allocates its resources across the services it delivers to the community. At the council meeting held on April 15, council resolved to release the draft council plan and the corresponding council plan actions for public comments. Public didn't actually make any submissions directly relating to the plan. However, because of the adjustments to the budget, the strategic resource document has had some alterations made to coincide with that. I think I'll leave it at that at the moment and let other councillors speak to it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Second to speak, Councillor Ross.
I'll reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors would like to speak on this item? Councillor Brett Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. I particularly like the council plan actions that at the back of the document. It really clearly outlines what we're going to do, obviously 1920 and the years after that. It's a really good reference point to get a really good idea of council's focus. I understand in 1920 we're reviewing our Parks and Gardens contract. We're tendering out that again, and also our waste. So they're quite significant sort of contracts that will be going out to market in 1920. So I look forward to that. And another thing is, I particularly like on page 558, just one item it is that I like, but implement priorities within the playground renewal program. Projects nominated included Narnagoon Rec Reserve, Narnagoon James Street, Lang Lang, Dick Jones Reserve, Lang Lang, and the Tantalon Boulevard Detention Basin, Beaconsfield. So, and as the years progress, you talk about what playgrounds are going to be upgraded, and I just really love that we've identified that. I've inspected these, by the way, and there's no doubt these need to be done. They have to be done. So it just gives you an idea. You know, that's one example, but it just outlines what council will be doing in the forthcoming years, and that's one for the playground. So I encourage residents to look at that. It's a very simple way to look at what council plans to do over the next 5 years, particularly in the 1920 year. I think they're the most relevant because we know as years progress, things change. We adopt this every year and things do change on different circumstances. So 1920 is the one that you should focus on, I think, anyway. All right, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Any other speakers to speak on this subject? I'll go back to the seconder. Do you like to speak now, Councillor Ross?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Ross.
Upon looking through, this is a really large document, but it is a total detail of how we're going to go about delivering our objectives. And if people care to look through it, they'll see that there's at least 17 plans, 16 strategic plans as well, and 8 policies. So all in all, that is what's mixed into this document to make sure that we are complying with all of those policies, strategies and plans. So it is a very complex document. I again thank our council staff for doing an amazing job that they can actually make sure it is all interwoven so that all those things can be delivered in line with our policies and our strategies and our plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other speakers on this subject? I'll go back to the mover, Councillor Wilmot. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for your comments. I'd also like to thank the senior leadership team and the managers and staff involved in developing all of these documents, the budget, council plan and the actions. We had a very new team in place during all our budget workshops this year. We had a CEO that had only been in the role for about 6 weeks. We had lots of people that were in acting GM roles, including Ms. Cicluna, who led most of our workshops and did a terrific job. I think your skills as a teacher came shining through because you kept them lively and entertaining and kept us all awake, even on a really hot day. You sprang for ice creams, which was terrific. But the quality of those workshops and the work that the staff has done is evident in these plans and in the budget, and I thank you all for that. I think what we've got ahead of us is a busy couple of years, particularly the next 12 months or so, with so many road projects and so forth being funded through the federal elections. So we've got some busy times ahead of us, but I'm sure we've got the right people in the right places to get them things done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. So all those in favour? All those for? Carried. We move to item 5. the Road Development Program, withdrawn by Councillor Brett Owen. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the following, that Council endorses the below roads to be included in the first package of tender documentation to seek prices for delivery: Huxwell Road, Hobson's Road, Soldiers and McGregor Road, Bessie Creek Road, Armitage, LL and Phyllis Road, Boundary, Denhams and Main Drain Road, Door Road, Evans Road and Mount Lyell Road. Move so.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Jeff Springfield. Back to you, Councillor Owen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Springfield. I think most people know that we've got a roads challenge, 863 kilometres of unsealed roads in our Shire, which are under increasing pressure due to population growth and a high percentage of commercial vehicles using the road network. The increasing demand on the road network reduces service levels, increases maintenance costs and a detrimental impact on the environment, not to mention adverse feedback from the community on the state of the network. And as councillors, we get feedback probably every day in relation to our roads. And when I know this work was in train before Ms Jeffs joined us, but we made this as a priority when we appointed our new CEO, that roads, we had to address our roads issue. I do acknowledge a lot of work was done in the background, but we made that as a priority for this council with a new CEO. So since 2017, we've been looking at this, and we've been discussing a road sealing program, and that's where it brings us to this point now. There has been extensive conversations, debate between councillors and officers in relation to which roads, because at the moment we've got this list before you, but there could be 50 on this list, and we had to really dwindle the roads down as which are the most prioritised roads at this point of time, looking at the criteria. Strategic: if the road was to be sealed, would it improve connectedness of the sealed road network and its likelihood of increased usage? Safety: crash history based on information obtained from reported crashes on these roads from 2012 to 2016. Safety physical assessment based on site safety observation assessments on physical aspects of each road. Usage: the number of vehicles that use each road based on the most recent traffic count. Maintenance: based on the ongoing level of maintenance that is required by council for each road. So, long debate. Some councillors, I know I went to each of these roads because I wanted to, before going to vote on this, I wanted to be sure in my mind that these roads are the most prioritised roads, the most strategic. And I was convinced after doing that sort of self-tour that these roads are important. We've got a game changer in front of us, Cardinia. At the recent federal election, or just before that, we had both sides committing to $150 million to Cardinia over the next 10 years for road improvements, sealing unsealed roads. And that is a game changer, $150 million. So this is the first list of roads that we're going to do, but working with the federal government, looking at our finances as well, we will be delivering more roads. There's roads that just missed this list, and we know that residents have been contacting councillors, knowing that we're about to, adopt this sealing program, but roads such as Morrison Road, Mount Burnett Road, Mountain Road came very close to making this list, but we can reassure residents that live on other roads that haven't been covered, those strategic roads, that with this announcement by the federal government, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and we'll have another roads package before us in the very near future that will list the next round of roads, because it is so important. So I'm pleased, a lot of work in the background, and I thank our officers. It dates back, obviously, Mike Ellis and his team before Peter joined us, but a lot of work since 2017. So I move this. The idea is that we accept this list, and then it's proposed that a detailed design and construction of these roads will be tendered out in the coming months, with the majority of packages to be funded by council and some to be funded by the federal government scheme. So I move so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Well done. Councillor Springfield, the second to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. As Councillor Owen pointed out, our unsealed road network is one of the biggest challenges, if not the biggest challenge that we face at this council. For Cardinia Shire, I believe we have the largest unsealed road network for a metropolitan council in Victoria. All right, and it's a mighty challenge in front of us that many of our neighbouring councils do not know or understand. I know our good mayor understands it because he lives on a dirt road. And look, I grew up my life in the hills, and I fortunately live on a made road myself. But a lot of people I know are on dirt roads, and I understand their challenges. But I only understood the tip of the iceberg until I came and started working for council, and then received the phone calls and the justifiable phone calls and emails from residents, because it is a challenge if that's what you have every day in front of your driveway. This package is not going to fix all the problems in the world, all right? I would love it to, but unfortunately it's not. But this is a start. This is moving in the right direction, and it's going to take a long-term strategic plan for us to really address the overall needs of our residents. This is a fantastic start. As Councillor Owen pointed out, we've been very fortunate from the federal government recently in an announcement that will drastically improve that over the coming years for a number of roads throughout the Dandenong Ranges that are going to be sealed under that package. So I thank the federal government for that and welcome that, along with our contribution to this, along with our road maintenance program, which we've implementing now, that we've recently developed. I look forward to a few years down the track when we really can say we've ticked a few boxes. We can say we've really worked on this, and we have. And to the residents out there that are listening in, I promise you that this is one of the number one topics of discussion week in, week out with our council room meetings, is how to better deliver for our communities on these issues of the unsealed road network. It was a very tough decision to come down to the roads that were decided upon. We had a tight criteria, as Councillor Owen pointed out, and matched these roads against this criteria, and then had vigorous debate around that of where we thought priorities might lie. I too, like Councillor Owen, did a bit of journeying around to observe these roads, and I know there's a lot of people out there that will say, "Why not my road?" I'm sure that they will think that, but trust me, if you're listening, if you took a drive down some of these roads here, Bessie Creek Road or a Door Road or a Huxtable Road, you would understand that these are priority roads for these reasons. I'd also like to make mention that the focus for this package is on connectivity, on connecting roads, unsealed roads to complete the sealed road network. And so because of that, there was many residents out there on small residential roads, didn't get the sort of weighted scoring and the look-in that these roads did. But I'm thankful again to the federal government announcement, because many of those other roads throughout the Dandenong Ranges and the hills will be getting addressed in the next 5 to 8 years, due to that announcement from the federal government. So just in closing, I hope my fellow councillors will support this, and I would like to thank all the hard work that's gone into the offices so far. I make mention this report. It's about $300,000 we've spent on time in developing this project to date, because you've got a lot of work goes in behind the planning and the understanding of the requirements of these roads. And so I'd like to thank everyone for the work, and I look forward to cutting a few ribbons on a couple of these guys once we finally get there. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. I'll look forward to doing that as well. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, fellow councillors, for withdrawing this item. As councillors have said, this was a very hard decision to make. We had a whole host of roads ahead of us, and the officers had presented their preferences with weighted scores, and they were very accurate. Like my fellow councillors, I have driven these roads. I think the main thing that sealing these roads is going to do, it's going to free up some of our resources to provide maintenance on the existing roads, because I think the maintenance, it's not so much the unsealed roads, it's the holes in the unsealed roads, the time taken between getting a grader out there to fix those holes, and the fact that as councillors, every time we get a phone call and we ask for some special, not so much special, but immediate action, because the holes are that big, it disrupts the whole program. So it's a catch-up program all the time, and we're not helping it by disrupting the officers and asking them to do things. But that's what we're elected for, is to help the community and be their voice. So I'm not making any excuses for that. As I said before, and I won't use what the Mayor's reaction is when people complain about unmade roads, but I'll keep that between him and myself. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I won't disclose that either. Any other speakers on this subject? Councillor Ross.
I, like Councillor Owen, went and drove on all the roads that we put up on the list to be considered. I must say I confer with Councillor Owen that unfortunately a couple of the roads had just been graded, so I really didn't get a good effect of what they were like. But nevertheless, in Cardinia Shire, we have 863 kilometres of unsealed roads. We have a range of roads too. We have hills roads, which are very undulating. We have the flat areas down in the south, where you've got the Bunyip food belt, which is really challenging because one solution doesn't fix all. In the Shire, we've had extremely dry times, which really make the roads very, very hard to keep the maintenance up on them when they become extremely dry. Also, too, we have extreme rain. And when I talk about extreme rain, particularly in the hills area, you could finish up with the roads being graded one day, and if you get lots of rain within one day, they are all wrecked, a whole lot of them. And then council goes into extreme mode to try and get back to a manageable line of maintenance again. I must say, so as I said, basically, and I've driven down roads up in the hills where one day you drive down them, they're graded, and within about 3 days they'll have massive potholes, they'll have corrugations, and then they'll have grooves across the road where the water, when it rains, it runs right across the road and creates another groove. So this is one of the biggest challenges. I must say that the councillors in the hills and in the flat areas have definitely, this is their number one thing. They get rung up all the time about this. And I know that by investing in these roads, we'll help those residents and help them be able to get something. But what we do is we actually look for some solution that will have the most benefit to most people. So it mightn't be your road that gets built, but it might be a connector road that you join up with other people that you get the benefit from, so more people get the benefit. As Councillor Springfield said and Councillor Owen, it is extremely tough to look through these because everybody has merit. Everyone who lives on a dirt road will have from time to time a really bad condition of that road, and we do empathise with you, but we just hope by investing. And to give you an example, this will take up, if we were to pay the 20 million in 1 year, you're looking at probably a third of our rates bill just on this, but we're going to do it over a period of years. Also too, some people seem to believe that you can invest money, say, in the hills and build all sealed roads in the hills. We had an estimate on the hills, just building the sealed roads in the hills, you're looking at approximately $370 million in the hills alone. And that's without all the drainage as well. So we have to be really smart about what we do with this money. And that's what I think we've done. I thank my fellow councillors who do live in the hills for bringing back to council all of the discussions they've had with ratepayers, who have shared with them numerous times on why these need to be built. And I notice some of them are really big roads. I mean, some of them are 6.5 kilometres long, 5.3 kilometres, 6.6 kilometres, and another one that's just under 6 kilometres. So we're talking about some serious roadworks here, and I hope that this will all get done in as quickly as it can, and that it's done really well. So therefore they'll be able to come back and share with us just what a benefit it was. Anyway, I thank the council staff for all the hard work. They were really going over numbers, because it isn't as easy as just putting a sealed road. You need to build the drainage on the sides of the road. You need the up in the hills, the geography of the hills is just amazing. The amount of engineering that needs to be done on roads that changes too, because the roads and the slopes and everything, and people would think, it's pretty easy to do this. Well, it isn't. It is very, very complex, and sometimes figures come back when you look at a road and they sort of take an idea on what it might cost, and then when they find out it costs double what they thought it would. So it has been an extremely hard process. I thank them very much, and I would just like to commend the ratepayers for being extremely patient with council and giving us a bit of time to try and work on this to get the best solution. Anyway, and as Councillor Springfield says, this isn't the silver bullet that fixes it all, but it's part of the silver bullet that will come to an end one day when we get the whole solution right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other speakers on this subject? Councillor Wilmot.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say that I think it's very important that we're keeping these road projects separate. This group of roads is the road project that we agreed on back in 2017, well before the federal funding came through. So this is the roads that we agreed to borrow $25 million to do. They are the bigger connector roads. It wasn't for special charge or the smaller township type roads. These are the big major connecting roads. And other councillors have spoken about the work that's gone into this, and as you can see, it's 2 years since we first agreed to that package, but it's 2 years of looking at which roads. There was 126 roads that were originally presented to us. That's a lot of roads. And yeah, we were never going to make all of them, but the staff have gone through it. They've got the data, they've made the assessments, they've done rough design work, and now they've done extensive full detailed design work. And these are the roads that will fit in within that package. The federal funding is completely different. That's for funding roads within the Latrobe electorate, so it won't be right across the Shire. It is only in Latrobe, but they will, to make that money go further, it'll be more special charge schemes, subsidising special charge schemes, so that it doesn't cost residents as much as what it would normally. So I just want to be very clear that it's two separate packages. Yes, they will all be happening at the same time and it'll all coincide, but it is two separate packages with two separate criteria of how these things are going to be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Any other speakers on the subject? Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Just like to commend the staff and the CEO for a very hard decision, as well as my fellow councillors. It has been very, very difficult because, as it's been presented, we're all pretty passionate about our own areas as well as the whole Cardinia Shire, and all we want is what's best for the Shire and what our community hopes to see from us working hard behind the scenes. And that's the hardest thing, is having an understanding of what councillors do behind the scenes, and what staff and our officers do as well. So I just commend all of that, and thank you to my fellow councillors, because it has been an interesting journey, even for me as a new councillor, to sit there, go through, understand the budget, and then be totally confused and then think, oh my God, why am I here? But you get through it because you've got the whole team working together. And I just wanted the whole community to know that we are doing what's right for our community, what's the best for our community. So thank you, Mayor, through you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. No other speakers. Before I go back to the mover, I'd just like to say that these roads, the debate we're having tonight here in amongst the council chamber is similar to the debate we had when we were debating about which road to do. And so therefore it's still healthy, it's still there, we've still got our place to go. But the way Councillor Ross explains about the Rangers Ward roads to get done, I think we should build more and down the flat where they're easier to build. Sounds like a really good idea. But it is important to understand that these roads are linking roads. So we're trying to link bitumen to bitumen. It's very important to understand. So therefore, you've got a major alternative to come down. Because when we grade a road, everybody uses that road. They all get to know on the, I think on Facebook or whatever they get on, they know which road's been graded. So the whole community travel down that road. And so what happens to choose a gravel road up just overnight, and that's part of the problem with the increase of population we have here as well. So it's important to understand that if we make one bitumen road that's a major link, the most of the community will travel down that road because it'll be pretty consistently good all the time, and therefore it'll take the pressure off those secondary linking roads that we have within our community. So that's important to understand that that's what we have to do. And finally, one of the gravel roads is not mine. Let's get that clear. Councillor Springfield. Across to you, Councillor Owen, to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all councillors for your comments. I know we're all passionate about this issue. Just summing up, they are connector roads. When you look at the diagram on page 575, the map, and there was comments about the map later on in the agenda, but if you look at that map on 575, you can see how they are those connecting roads, linking to other sealed networks, and you cannot argue with that when you look at even Huxtable Road, McGregor, Hobson Soldiers. That's a major arterial going south of Pakenham to Cardinia and towards Kirrirup. Bessie Creek Road and Door Road. You cannot argue that is a significant connector road heading up north towards Gembrook. Evans Road linking into Borbor, Mount Lyell Road, strong links to South Gippsland Shire and the traffic flows into that. So I also want to thank the federal government. That $150 million is a game changer. Yes, they are separate programs, but for those who missed out on this current list, those major connector roads as well, that source of revenue or funding will be used to deliver those secondary roads. And I'm hoping Mount Burnett Road, Morrison Road, Mount Road will be on those to be considered the next stage. So as Councillor Brown did say, this will relieve our unsealed network. So those roads, 40 kilometres of roads will be sealed. That 40 kilometre of roads that used to be graded, that focus will shift to the unsealed network. And we know that these roads are taking up huge amounts of time from our graders. So we remove them from the unsealed network. Those hours, those efforts can go to the remaining on the unsealed network, and that will have a significant impact, and residents will see that. So I move this great program. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowan. All those in favour? For? Carried. Item 7. Proposed leash-free dog area, Goldsborough Drive Officer, withdrawn by Councillor Brett Owen. Thank you, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council not proceed with the proposed leash-free dog area in Goldsborough Drive Reserve Officer and respond to the head petitioner advising them of the decision.
Thank you, Councillor. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Jeff Springfield. Back to you, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. In 2018, we went through a process of reviewing the leash-free dog areas, and there was a policy document implementation plan that was adopted, and Goldsborough Drive Officer was earmarked for a new off-leash dog area. So it wasn't an existing one like most of the others were in the policy, that being Tumark Creek, Alma Trelaw, and others in the policy. So this was Council nominating a new one. Since then, there's been resident concerns. We've received letters, emails, a petition containing 26 residents. Council was always going to consult with the community in relation to whether they wanted a off-leash dog area when we developed, that reserve. So we did have detailed communication that being discussions, tent on site, face-to-face communication with officers, telephone communications, email correspondence. There was an online survey that council conducted. 206 residents responded to that survey. 165 stated that they did not support the leash-free dog area. 41 did support the leash-free area. I'm a strong supporter of having off-leash dog areas, and in the budget we've just adopted, we've got 150,000 in the budget to improve those spaces in categories of dog parks, and then we've got another 150,000 in the proposed 2021 budget. So we are committed to improving infrastructure at these off-leash dog areas, because when we went through that 2018 work, it was demonstrated that there is strong support for off-leash dog parks. So if there is not that support, and that is clear now, once we've gone out to the officer community in that estate, that they don't want it. There is one in Hammerwood Drive in Panorama, probably just over a kilometre away from this site. So that went through a thorough process. That's been earmarked for an off-leash dog area. Currently is off-leash dog area. So I think residents who want to utilise that park can go to that one in Panorama Estate in Beaconsfield, which we will upgrade with additional infrastructure in the coming years. So I think it's council's listened to that community. We are still committed to off-leash dog parks with over 300,000 over 2 years. And I think that will meet the need of those residents that want to utilise these parks. So I move so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowland. Councillor Springfield, seconded to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, not a lot to add. Councillor Owen summed it up perfectly. Look, I'm in very much the same boat as him. I'm a great supporter of off-leash dog parks. I think it's it's good activity for pets and humans alike to get out and run around. But I want to congratulate council officers for engaging with the community and recognising that this wasn't the appropriate site for an off-leash dog park. If I read just quickly off the report, the community consultation process results indicate that the majority of the local community within the Timbertop West and the Rise Estates do not support the proposed leash-free dog area within Goldsberg Drive Reserve, Officer. And so I think this is a great outcome that we identified it. It looked on a map. It looked good in principle. It looked good. We consulted with the community, the locals of that area, and majority did not support it. So we're not recommending to move forward with it. So I think that's exactly how the Shire should run. It's with consulting the community and delivering the best outcomes for the residents around it. So thank you, councillors, and thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Any other speakers on this subject? Councillor Ross.
Anyone who cares to read this report will see that it's only changing it by one to 14 leash-free areas within the Shire. I must say, when I first got on council over 11 years ago, there was no leash-free areas in all of Cardinia Shire Council, and there was a group down behind Tumac Reserve who used to walk their dogs, and they said, we believe we can do this safely. And I went down and I walked with them a couple of times, and they showed me that their dogs were well behaved in their groups. They didn't run off, they didn't attack other dogs, and the whole lot of it. So we tried a trial down there, and it worked really well. We had no complaints, so then we extended it a little bit more, and then people sort of got more engaged and said, well, we'd like this to happen in our area too. So then council, come years down the track, have turned around, and other areas have heard about leash-free parks, and they wanted them too. So to come up with 14 after having none only just over 10 years ago, I think is a really good result. I think it should be noted too that Councillor Owen pointed out that in this year's budget there's $150,000 to try and make sure that the leash-free parks do have separation points in some areas where it could be a little bit of an issue. So that needs to be looked at and reviewed to see that we do cover those areas, and feedback from the community is really good. I think it should be noted too that residents can stand up for things and prosecute their case to council and councillors that things aren't appropriate and don't need to be there, and council will turn round and eliminate some things out of it if we follow your argument. So anyway, I just think it's an amazing result. We've turned something that we had nothing into something that really benefits our community as we grow. And we have more people live together and have more dogs and smaller blocks of land, so people do need to take their animals out and take them for a walk. Otherwise, what happens is they just start barking and they don't get a walk. Anyway, then we have more people who've got issues. Anyway, I just think it's a wonderful thing, and I look forward to finding out how it all works out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other speakers on the subject? No other speakers. I'd just like to ask a question of the officers. When did we change from off-leash to leash-free dog areas? And is there a difference? The same thing. Okay, just checking. You knew that. I didn't know. I want to clarify it because leash-free means they don't have to take a leash with them. Okay, I'll go back to the mover to sum up. Councillor Brett Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Through the draft budget process, it was a strong view of councillors that we wanted to deliver this off-leash, leash-free infrastructure earlier, because in the document that we adopted in 2018, I think that was spread over 7 years, and councillors were of the view that we wanted to get this done because it was demonstrated that there's a strong need for that. So on page 635 is the hierarchy and what facilities or what infrastructure will be at each of those hierarchy parks. So council has listened to the local residents, and I encourage anyone that want to use a facility nearby to this estate, definitely go to the Panorama one, which is Hammerwood Green Reserve in Beaconsfield, which is about 1 k away. I move so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Thank you, councillors, for your input. All those in favour? For? Carried. We'll move to item 8. The Biodiversity Conservation Strategy 2019 to 2029, as withdrawn by Councillor Jeff Springfield. Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council adopts the Biodiversity Conservation Strategy.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ross. To you, Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor. I have this lovely little booklet in front of me here today, which we got to observe for the first time, which will be available to public to have a look at once this is, if it is adopted tonight's meeting. I'm very proud of this work that's gone into this. When I came onto council, I came here with the environment being one of my highest priorities for our local area, and this policy addresses a strategic plan for the future to help conservation of our local environment. It's a wonderful thing. I'm going to read off the notes here momentarily. The strategy identifies goals and objectives to address threats to the natural environment in the context of protection, enhancement, connectivity, and community engagement. A detailed 10-year costed action plan will deliver on these goals and enable council to meet its legislative obligations to protect native plants and animals, while also promoting council to play a leadership role in the community. Council does not currently have a long-term strategy to conserve biodiversity within the Shire and reverse the decline of our native species on public land. The community, who manage 83% of the land area within the Shire, also require further information and support to appropriately manage their land to achieve conservation outcomes. And we do this because we have approximately 1,325 native plants, 414 native animals are all found within 53 different plant communities in Cardinia Shire's natural environment. We manage 77 bushland reserves, over 840 hectares and 950 kilometres of significant roadside. It's a big it's a big thing we have in front of us is our natural environment, and it's something that we often forget about in our busy lives, jumping from our living rooms into our cars, off to work and back again. And all around us is a living, thriving community of biodiversity. And it's all too often in modern society that we don't have a chance to sit back and appreciate these things. And so I'm really happy that we have this together now, because this can help educate and identify the importance of what is surrounding us in our own backyard. And this is one small step that we can play for our environment, which we are caretakers of within the Cardinia Shire. It's only one small drop in the ocean compared to the whole world that has all their own issues going on. But if we can't manage our own backyard, then how can we be expecting others to be doing a better job of managing theirs? So I think this is a great piece of work that we've put together. And I look forward to seeing some of these outcomes delivered within this document in the coming years. I'll leave it there, Mayor. Thank you.
Well said, Councillor Springfield. Well said. Very passionate about this community. Councillor Ross, seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I must say, Councillor Springfield, when he first came to council, this was one of his aspirations to look after the biodiversity of our council area. And to give you just a little bit of a glimpse of our council area, we've got approximately 1,325 natural plants, 414 native animals are found within 53 different plant communities in Cardinia Shire's natural environment. Council also manages 77 bushland reserves, over 840 hectares and 950 kilometres of significant roadsides. And unfortunately, out of all of that, we've got 94 native plants are listed as rare or threatened. 63 native animals are recorded as threatened inside the Shire. I must say this policy gives us a roadmap to learning how to look after the land on which we're on. We are custodians of the land on which we're in for future generations, and it is our responsibility to look after it to the best of our ability. So I think this is part of the solution. I think that having a plan and a policy allows our officers a direction that council can have confidence to head in on this. I must say this is one of Councillor Springfield's aspirations. I've seen him up there in the mud planting trees on a regular basis. He goes out all weathers. And the only thing it doesn't have in it, but I know that he's working on this emphatically, is the removal of feral cats. That's the only thing that's another aspiration he has. But I must say this one here is a really good solution towards our plants and our animals. We just need to find the other solution. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other councillors to speak on this subject? Councillor Wilmot.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I support this document. This is a very important piece of work that we're doing here. Unfortunately, though, we don't have enough budget to really implement this strategy fully. So we'll be relying heavily on grants that we can access from other sources to supplement this budget. But it is a very important document. Last week I was at Emerald Lake Park for one of our regular meetings regarding the weed removal project that they've been doing over the last 7 years. And they were talking about the replanting of native trees and shrubs and so forth. And they were saying that what they were planting 4 or 5 years ago, because they thought they would survive, aren't surviving because of climate change. And now they're looking at different types of plants to introduce that are native, but not necessarily indigenous to that area, because they're the ones that will perhaps survive better in a drier climate than what used to be there. So it's very important that we're doing this work because our climate is changing. I don't think anybody can really deny that. It is changing, and therefore our vegetation will change, and once your vegetation changes, your animals will also change. So it's very important that we are doing what we can to sustain a healthy environment for not just ourselves but for our animals as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Thank you. Any other speakers on the subject? I'll go back to the mover, Councillor Jeff Springfield. Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor, and to my fellow councillors. As Councillor Wilmot pointed out, we actually, what's come about from developing this 10-year strategic plan is that we don't have forward estimates for the budgetary requirements in order to implement this plan. But I'm very hopeful that the evidence and data shown within this will dictate the need for that to come up in future budgets. And through this process, it has been pointed out that we have been quite light on in some regards towards our environmental budget in the past years, and our focus on strategies towards that in the past. So I look and hope that, I hope and I'm optimistic that the future we will do better than what we have in the past. I'm just going to point something else out for the moment, which many people might not know about. It's the they refer to it as the Holocene extinction, otherwise referred to as the sixth mass extinction or Anthropocene extinction, which is a current event. We are currently, in scientific terms, in the sixth mass extinction that we know we've experienced across the world in its life over the last 4 billion years or whatever it's been there. And many of the other mass extinctions they attribute to asteroids hitting Earth, massive volcanic disruptions and darkening from ash clouds for decades and such. But this one is the only one that our scientists can recognise and attribute to another of the animal species on the Earth, which is us mammals, humans. And it is from our great expansion over the last several hundred years that has really contributed to this. And so I think with that, as a society, comes our responsibility, to mitigate that as best we can, as much we can, to recognise that global warming is one part of it, but we are having a detrimental effect on the vast environment around us that often goes unnoticed in our busy lifestyles. And so we do have a responsibility as a society to recognise that and to try and protect that for the future generations, because we don't know what will happen in a couple of 100 years if our oceans are bare, and our crops won't grow properly because of the acidic nature of the rain and the air and the soil and such. So again, these are large world problems I'm describing here, but this document here is our step that we can take as a council towards protecting our backyard and what's important to us in the environment that surrounds us. So I ask council to support me in adopting this document tonight, and I thank you all for your input.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. All those who are doing this in favour of for? Against? Carried. Item 11, proposed update to the community engagement policy, as withdrawn by Councillor Letitia Wilmot. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the recommendation to adopt Council's updated community engagement policy.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I have a seconder, please, to this item? Councillor Ross or Councillor Brown? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Wilmot, thank you.
And thank you, Councillor Ross. You've been very busy tonight. In 2017, the Victorian Auditor General's Office, or VAGO, conducted an audit which examined the effectiveness of community engagement and participation at the local government level. They looked at community participation at 6 councils, which included a mix of metropolitan, rural and regional councils, with Cardinia Shire being one of those 6. The audit included a number of recommendations being made to improve in community engagement process, and since this time, the 2018 to 22 council plan has come into action, with one of the actions to be to update the current community engagement policy, which was due in 2019. So it's good timing. The recommendations included the addition of further and community resources, templates and checklists to assist in the development and delivery of community engagement activities. This has prompted some additions and language changes within the policy. However, the majority of the changes are already included in the Community Engagement Handbook and Engagement Plan template. The main changes to Council's community engagement policy are update to reflect current council plan aligning with our community and our governance areas, updates to meet VAGO's recommendation of including objectives that articulate what the policy aims to achieve, updates to meet VAGO's recommendation of adding responsibilities, clearly stating who is required to undertake community engagement activities and when, inclusion of a reference to the resources, templates and tools available through the Community Engagement Handbook, and updates to meet VAGO's recommendation of including definitions of terms. The Community Engagement Policy has been developed for the purpose of meeting the following objectives: to articulate and guide Council's commitment and approach to high quality, consistent and genuine community engagement, to provide a commitment to inclusive, transparent and accessible community engagement activities within the community, and to provide a framework to build the capacity of the community to contribute to effective and responsive decision making. These updates will bring Cardinia Shire Council's community engagement policy in line with some of the best practice policies which were used as a benchmark in the VAGO review. Community engagement plays a vital role in much of the work undertaken by Cardinia Shire Council, and as such, this policy aligns with the council plan under the areas of our community and our governance, as well as aligning to the livability plan in relation to social equity. I'd just like to congratulate our Community Engagement Officer, Mark Carter, who's come on board, I think it's probably only about 12 months ago. But Mark has been the person that has reviewed this policy and made changes to it. And I've had the pleasure of attending a couple of different consultations that Mark has run over the last 12 months. And he does a terrific job of making sure that everybody in the room is taking part and contributing to the conversation. The changes that he's made to this policy are really good, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this being implemented right across council and an increase in the opportunities that are available. We're certainly doing things a lot better now than what we were when I first joined council back in 2012. So I congratulate Mark on his work and his effort, and encourage him to keep doing the great stuff that he's doing at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Second to speak, Councillor Ross.
I don't believe I can add anything of value to that report. That was excellent. Thank you, Councillor Wilmot.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other speakers on this subject? No other speakers. We'll go back to you, Councillor Wilmot, to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just finish by saying that whilst the policy is the policy, the accompanying handbook and engagement templates are living documents, and they'll regularly be reviewed and updated on what the industry standards and ideas and feedback from staff and community. The adoption of the policy in conjunction with the accompanying engagement handbook is intended to ensure a more consistent approach across council to community engagement. And the update provides councillors, senior staff, volunteers, contractors, clarity and guidance in relation to what the expectations of a community engagement process is. And this will assist in the delivery of a more consistent approach to community engagement activities across council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. We'll signify in the usual manner. All those for? Carried. Item 12. The Sports Facilities Standards Policy of 2019 as withdrawn by Councillor Ray Brown. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council adopts the 2019 Sports Facilities Standards Policy and Appendix, including endorsing a modified Option 3. Option 2 was 100 square metres of social space for all sports, and also 90 square metres of external covered viewing area for all sports. I have added to that recommendation by providing up to an additional 15 square metres to each change room for Australian rules football facilities.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Could I have a seconder for this motion, please? Councillor Brett Owen. Back to you, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we all realise in the room how important sporting facilities are to our communities. It's just not providing grounds for them to run out and about. It's also providing the right facilities for them to get ready for that competition, and also to tidy up afterwards a competition. And Council provides and maintain recreation reserves and facilities that support most of these sports. Currently 35 recreation facilities and 4 indoor sporting facilities in our Shire, with 7 new reserves and 1 indoor facility planned for the coming years. As well as assuming the financial responsibility to assure these amenities, Council must also be aware of the financial burden that overdeveloped facilities provide. But at what cost is underdevelopment of facilities? We could probably save a few dollars, but what is the real cost of providing underdeveloped facilities that don't meet the needs of the people that are going to use those facilities? Get it right the first time and have the community embrace the facilities rather than provide less than they have now, significantly less now, in respect of change rooms by the policy, and risk rejection. It's a fine balance. Don't get it right causes all sort of problems, and then play catch up. When all of a sudden we decide that the facilities are not working, what are we going to do? How do we catch up? I welcome the sports facility, as you do have to have standards, and commend the officers who upgraded it and produced it. They used the State Sports Association standards at the time and the assumptions of that time. Those standards policy refer you to the AFL Preferred Facility Guidelines for state, regional and local facilities, Australian rules, football included. The policy reviewed and developed with clear purpose in mind, and that is to provide clear direction for the provision of sporting facilities into the future, using the policy to ensure that a fair, equitable approach is taken and community needs are met. I stress, community needs are met. There is a lot of knowledge and experiences that all of us bring to Council, particularly of our communities and of the community's frustrations. When I decided to join Council, I made a commitment to the people that I would represent them if I thought something was not right. If they wanted me to bring something to Council that they decided was not right, I said I would represent them. I've served over, 14 years on the Recreation Reserve Committee at Cooey-Rupp in all sorts of tasks there. Over 20 years with the football club as president, secretary, player, as well as other areas where I've used change rooms. Currently, Cooey-Rupp's change rooms are somewhere around about 80 square metres. This policy seeks to bring them back to 35. The recommendation is 35. I'm saying an extra 15 square metres would bring them to 60. So there's still a degree of give and take there, with the football club giving away some space and Council being flexible enough to give them some space back. My experience has shown that everyone has different needs, and to meet those needs puts Council in a situation. We do or we don't. That is why we need standards that this policy supplies, but they must be flexible. The policies must be flexible. The policy as it stands now is 35 square metres for a change room. That is blatantly too small. If you consider that you have football teams on the field as well as football teams being changed, as well as teams coming off the field and then the other team going out and the others change, you have bags, you have clothes hanging on racks, you have parents in the rooms at times, particularly with the younger kids, you have supporters, and don't discount your supporters, because that's what makes your football club tick. Take away your supporters, you lose a lot of funding. Football is a tribal game, and the supporters need to be engaged, as well as the players need to have the right facilities to move. The recommendations are the increase the social space by 10 metres to 100 square metres. I don't have a problem with that because, as I said before, with supporters, with football clubs, they run on volunteers, they run on running functions to fund their club. Give them the right facilities, they can get more people in, they can earn money, and they provide a good social outlet for players and the community in general to meet. Increase of 15 square metres to 90 square metres of external viewing undercover, which means people can get out of their cars and go and view the football outside rather than sit in their cars when the weather is inclement. So I support that. But again, the big one is the 15 square metres to each change room. I think that is a non-negotiable as far as I'm concerned. I believe that we need to be flexible. The standard says 35. I'm saying make it 60 or up to 60. Up to 60. You can negotiate down or you can not negotiate up. You can negotiate down. However, if you have a situation whereby the usage proves that it needs to be negotiated up, I think we should be flexible enough to look at that. The policy states, it is important to note that this is a guide only. This is the AFL preferred facility guidelines. Individual associations or public land managers may decide to provide additional facilities, larger sizes, alternate layouts, depending on specific local requirements on a case-by-case basis. And that's what I'm saying. This is a case-by-case basis that I'm advocating, that we should be flexible enough to provide this to the people who need it rather than, here you are, this is what you're getting. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Second to speak, Councillor Breton.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Brown. I'm supporting you with your alternate motion. I thank the officers have been working really hard in renewing these sporting facility standards. In my view, I want to see fairness. I think, my view, that council has made decisions, with some flexibility and not adhering to this policy with proposed facilities or new facilities. So I've been looking forward to seeing this policy in place. It's really important that we do improve our facilities. So this policy, as in the reports, are seeing changes to massage facilities, first aid rooms, umpires, unisex change rooms. We have male and female umpires, so we've got changes in that space. We see increased storage. I'm a current team manager for my son for football, and you go into umpires' rooms that become storage facilities, cleaning cupboards that become storage for witches' hats and stuff like that. So we need to improve. So this policy increases storage. I believe doubling storage, internal and external. We're seeing increase in social space, and I don't agree with social. I don't think that's the word we should be using. We should be multi-use facilities. I've had strong conversations around this table about what we're proposing at the Officer Rec Reserve. That is not just a social space for a football cricket club. These are community spaces. The Country Women's Association wants to use that facility to make meals for the wider community and need. Multicultural groups want to use that facility. So it's not just social, and I think we should probably change that word because they are multi-use facilities. And I think definitely increasing it from 90 to 100 is really, really good. Changes to runoff distances for certain fields. Increase in spectator external cover. That's important. We're increasing that. I do support Councillor Brown's alternate motion for that additional up to 15 metres squared because, as I said before, I was team managing over the weekend for a junior team, and this is Beaconsfield, and it's a very busy club. I think, over 17 junior teams. You've got, in this circumstance yesterday, you had 2 teams using a 45 metre squared change room. Under what Councillor Brown's alternative is, that if a club that can demonstrate that they need the additional 15 metres squared because they've got 17 clubs and they need 2 teams at once in one change room. I was there at the end of the game when parents want to come in and see their children get awards. I swear, and I've got photos of it. 80 people in a 45 metre square change room. The same thing was going next door at Home Park because you had 2 teams using each of those change rooms at the same time. And as you said, you've got teams coming in, teams coming out, you've got bags. I think if you could demonstrate up to an additional 15 metres squared for that club or that rec reserve, because you know that they will have those increased teams. And, larger towns, growth corridor towns, I think you can argue that, especially if they're going to utilise those change rooms to the maximum. They're bookended. Teams are in there all day. And that was under 8s, under 9s at least, where you had 2 teams at the one time in that change room. So I will support you, Councillor Brown, in your alternative motion up to additional 15 metres square if it is justified and there's a strong case to do that. And if clubs can demonstrate that, I support that. But I commend once again to the officers. I know they've been working really hard on that. And I think it is important that we do have these guidelines because it's about fairness. And that's what I wanted to see in this facility standards. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rowan. Any other speakers on this subject? Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the councillors that spoke before me. I have to say that I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with both the sentiments here. I think the policy is a fantastic policy that's been put together to meet the needs of our user groups and our sporting communities for the future. It has an equitable level of fairness towards addressing what facilities need to go where. It looks at looking at our gender diversity with the more and more emerging female sporting participation in sports that didn't have it in the past. So it addresses many of these things. I just want to note quickly that the only alteration that is in the alternate motion that Councillor Brown has put forward is up to an additional 15 square metres to each change room for Australian rules football facilities. Now, this, I feel, allows us to have the flexibility to decide on a needs basis that, as Councillor Owen pointed out, if a club and a sporting group can prove a need for added amenities in the change rooms, then we have the flexibility with the extra dot point on there to allow that. And apart from that, one little line in the huge document that's before us, which is, I agree with the whole document. It's a fantastic document. I commend again the work that the council officers have put into preparing this and addressing the needs of our sporting communities in the future. And look, I hope that other councillors at this table see that this is also a good document to push forward also. All right, thanks, Mayor. I'll leave it there before I keep tripping over my words, but thank you for listening.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Any other speakers on this subject? Councillor Ross.
Before I begin, I want to just acknowledge that between Councillor Owen and Councillor Brown, they are the strongest advocates I've ever seen for certain developments. They absolutely try their best for the community, and they do speak on behalf of the community on those developments. So by what I'm about to say, by no way diminishes the need in those areas. I must say that the toughest, if you go back 11 years ago, we had no standards in our Shire at all. Our CEO of the day attended a grand final for the Beaconsfield Netball Club, who'd won multiple premierships. They had no change rooms. They got changed in the car. And he was just absolutely shocked and bewildered. He came back to council and he said, we need a sports policy for a minimum standard for all places, and including women in sport, not just males having change rooms, that females need them too. So since that time, we had a policy that was put in place, and through that we've seen female pavilions built specifically for them, like in Officer and Beaconsfield. They've actually got a social space, they've got change rooms, they've got kiosks, they've got undercover areas, and that was a really an amazing benchmark in Victorian sport to do something like that in advance of the explosion of women in sport. The toughest decision I find as a councillor is to keep council rates affordable but meet the needs of all residents. And you have to make tough decisions. And this one here, I commend Councillor Brown particularly on wanting to expand on the size of things, and I do believe on an ad needs basis that we can actually prosecute that case. But I must say, one thing that I have noticed, and I still play over 35s football, and to give you an example of the sort of places that I play, and I play recently, as in now. I've played at Greensborough, Cardinia Park, the VFA ground at Williamstown, Beaconsfield's grounds, TIO Stadium in Darwin, Victoria Park, Windy Hill, local clubs in Geelong, Ascot Vale, Albert Park, Craigieburn, Diamond Valley, Dingley, Frankston, Footscray, Princes Park, Western Oval. I can tell you, the facilities we provide, particularly our new stuff, is second to none. No other council provides as good as we do, particularly on the surfaces of the grounds. Some other councils might have big facilities like Casey, but have a look at their facilities. Their facilities, when it rains too much, falls apart. And they actually rang here a few years ago to transfer all their matches to Tumac Reserve because theirs couldn't handle the amount of rain that they'd had. I must say, I commend, and in an ideal world, I would love to see all of these things happen. But unfortunately, we have only an amount of money that we can spend. And with this, in addition to dot point C, which is the additional 15 square metres of change rooms, we have an additional, in A, 20 square metres of social space to be added to all facilities. And also too, the external covering viewing areas outside. Now, in an ideal world, we could afford to do all this. And I would say yes. But do you know what? There are certain groups, money only goes so far. And it's going to cost us, if you transfer this to all of the places we renovate, all the new places we're going to build with the population that's coming, we are talking about adding to all the facilities that we would build in the tens of thousands of dollars, if not millions in some cases. And my question is, if we do all of this, what goes? I mean, the senior citizens facilities that we have not been upgraded in 40 years. There is not a new one being built, and anyone who goes through them would be embarrassed. Our population's going from 18% of retirement age people to 25% in 10 years. They need things. We have services which are growing exponentially with people moving here too, so that goes up. More services for people. We have the lowest dollar spent on our administration on council of any council in Victoria. Our council staff can only do so much. We can only build so many things at their cost. They add more and more work as more people come. So we need to be acknowledging of that. And the big one that really hits me with this is the implications into the future of everything, how it folds out in the future. Some things will have to go. Some people are going to miss out. Well, I think in my time on council, I've seen tens of millions and millions of dollars spent on sporting facilities. And I'm a sports nut. But you know what? There are people out there who do other things in life besides play sport. They're into the arts. They like joining their clubs and being around other people. And those people are the people, if we increase too much what we spend here, they are going to miss out. And I do believe, after travelling all around and seeing all the other facilities, we do an amazing job. But I do believe, with the policy that we had, there is capacity there to argue your case to get more or to get extra funding outside of ratepayers paying for it. And that's been demonstrated at Officer, at Home Park Road and at Lang Lang. Those facilities have been provided millions of dollars from outside people that ratepayers didn't have to come up with to expand their facilities. So I think on an as-needs basis, I struggle with spending more in this area because I think we do an amazing job now. I do hear the argument, an as-needs basis on the facilities they're talking about, but I don't like the implications for everywhere. There needs to be an argument around that. So I do acknowledge my fellow councillors on their intent, and I think it is absolutely honourable, and I wish I could say that we could just afford to do it all, but unfortunately we can't. So I hope that is shared where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other speakers on this subject? Councillor Ryan.
Through you, Mayor. I support it to a certain degree on a needs basis, but I'm inclined to agree with Councillor Ross. The money implication to me is that how much more money are we going to spend on pavilions? And we do have other sports that we need to look at. We have disability sports we don't even acknowledge. We have other arenas we don't acknowledge. Netballers don't have showers. They go home or they take a change of clothes. They don't have that privilege of having showers, even though they play the same time as the football plays. And they're in the pouring rain, freezing cold, but they still, put up with it and go home. We are becoming a really unique society where we've got to have everything what we're used to being at home. And it doesn't happen that way at sport. Part of sport is being roughing it. Part of sport is being part of the gang. I was brought up in sport. My family was very, very much into sport. And, you were just, you just roughed it. That was the olden days. So I'm telling my age at this stage. But I am concerned about each pavilion and the extra cost. And the same, what misses out? Something's got to miss out, and I'm not willing to agree to this policy at this stage. That's all I've got to say, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Any other speakers on the subject? Councillor Wilmot.
Thank you, Mayor. And I commend you on trying to do the very best for the sporting community. I absolutely applaud you on that. Sport is a very important part of Australian life. We're sport mad. But I can't support this amendment tonight for the simple reason that we can't afford it. As Councillor Ross and Councillor Ryan have just said, we don't have enough money to spread across what we're doing currently. We've got two documents in front of us today, being the biodiversity plan and the weed management plan, that we don't have enough funding to cover what needs to be done in those areas. If we can't already fund programs and policies, we should not be extending what we provide to any other groups. So for those simple reasons, I can't support increased facilities above what the sporting associations recommend. So I won't be supporting this amended motion tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Any other speakers on this subject? Before I go to the mover, I'd like to say, I agree with Councillor Ross. Doesn't happen very often, but I do. That our facilities that we do are second to none, and they are. When I look around other neighbouring councils, we do a fantastic job in that space. The question is, are we going to do it and do it correctly at the time? Why bother building in the first place if they're not going to be suited to what the community needs are? The difference between what's in the policy and what the alternative motion is very minor. It's very simple, it's very minor. And if it makes it happen and it makes our community satisfied with the end product and the end result, so be it. Otherwise, we shouldn't do them in the first place if that's the case. And that's why we're doing policies. That's why we've got a policy. And that's why we've got this little bit of flexibility in here that we can do. I was a mixed decision between do we or don't we. I mean, I'm a bit halfway in between, which is when you've got 7 councillors here, it's a really nice place to be sometimes and not good sometimes. But you can tell the gallery that we've had strong debate about this. This is not something that we've just taken easily and said, we'll just do this or wave of a magic wand. We've looked in this very, very strongly and debated the question, and now we're down to the point where we have to vote on it. We've got to make things happen because we do have, to let you know, we do have time restraints on our facilities. We can't just say, we'll put them off, we'll just debate this again and again and again. We can't do it anymore. We have to make a decision, and that's what we have been put in these positions. We've been voted in these positions to be councillors to make those decisions for our community, and the best one. So I can't see the problem with this. I really honestly think that we can make this little bit of flexibility in this policy and make it happen. But I'll go back to the mover to sum up. Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, other speakers, and I do appreciate your point of view. But I go back to what I said before. What is the cost of not doing it? What is the point of doing something that won't meet the need in respect of change rooms? You may as well not do it. That's what it comes down to. You may as well not do it if it's not going to work, because the users are going to be the people who miss out. And later on, all of a sudden, we have a change of council and somebody says, let's fix this problem. We've created the problem and we've got a chance of fixing it now by doing it right. That's what I'm saying. And I do know that there are monies invested in this that is going to cost extra and it could have implications down the line. But there's no guarantee if we don't do this that any money we save are going to go to aged care or going to go to mental health or going to go to the environment. We don't know that. It depends on the councillors of the day. So you can't really address anything except what's on the table before you at the moment. And it's a little disappointing, you know, Councillor Ross, you say you went back 11 years. Well, we don't want to go back 11 years. We want to do things now and we want to do them right. And I take the Mayor's point of view that our facilities are good and we should be proud of them. And if we're going to build something that won't work, we should not be too proud of ourselves. And all we're saying here is have some flexibility in the policy, because at the moment you get 45 square metres, full stop. No negotiation, full stop. So what I'm suggesting is that we're flexible enough to increase that by another 15 as per the need. Why not? Let the users, let the people prove to us that this is what they need, because we haven't proven to anybody that 45 square metres is big enough. I can't see any documentation here from council officers to say 45 metres is big enough because of. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, can I just correct one thing that was said about what I said? I can't? No worries. Have a point of order. I can have a point of order to correct something that was said on behalf of myself, so I can clear it up and correct it. My point of order is my issue wasn't so much the 45, it's the first two, the extra 20 square metres of social space and the extra additional external covering that is not covered by our policy at the moment. That is my main issue, that will go to every single thing that we build, not so much just the 15 square metres. That's all I wanted to just highlight. Thank you.
I really don't consider that to be a point of order, Councillor. I'll go back to the vote. Okay, all those in favour, signal in the usual manner. For? Against? Carried. You can call a division. All those for, please stand. I recognise Councillor Brown, Councillor Brett Owen, Councillor Jeff Springfield and Councillor Graham Moore. All those against? I recognise Councillor Letitia Wilmot, Councillor Colin Ross and Councillor Carol Ryan. Could they be noted, please, Mr. Evans? Thank you. Okay, let's move on to item 15. Contract 1910, Gembrook Leisure Park Skate and Landscape Construction, as withdrawn by Councillor Letitia Wilmot. Councillor Wilmot.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that 1, the tender submitted by Warrendale Industries Proprietary Limited to undertake the works associated with contract 19/10 Gembrook Leisure Park Skate and Landscape Construction be accepted for the contract sum of $1,245,795.84, excluding GST. 2, the remaining tenders be advised accordingly. And 3, the common seal of the council be affixed to the contract documents.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Jeff Springfield.
Sorry, Councillor Ross, you missed out that go.
It's all good. I only thought I was putting it up because no one else did.
Yeah, and this is a good news story. You wanted to be part of it. I'm sure all councillors know that the Gembrook Leisure Park is located on the corner of East Beenack Road and Gembrook Road in Gembrook. The park was opened on the 11th of March 2001 and currently contains a skate park, undercover barbecue area, toilets and a timber adventure playground. The development of the original park was a community-driven and delivered project and was celebrated for its inclusiveness, with ramps allowing children of all abilities to access the main structure. The playground structure and skate park are now in the end of their useful life and are requiring an upgrade. I'm really pleased to be able to support this recommendation tonight. Back in 2014, I was contacted by a young man from Gembrook who, as a child, had been involved, along with his mum, in the development of this park, and he'd been skating there ever since. But he contacted me regarding the poor condition of the skate area, and at the time it was assessed and some minor works were done, but there was no provision within the budget for major renovations. So this has been an aspiration for quite a few years, and although it's taken a few years to get it through to the budget, it's good that we are here now at the point of appointing the contractor. Key components to the total project include pathway connections into the park, additional sealed accessible parking, multi-use courts, so that's basketball, netball and soccer, hangout space with interactive technology to play music, skatable space for scooters, BMX and skateboards with mounds and rails, passive lawn area with barbecue shelters and tables, play space, accessible park. This will include a range of interactive play on rubber surfaces, adventure and climbing play equipment with flying fox, nature play, public toilets will also get an upgrade. The project's got a budget of 1.5 million, and both the state and federal governments have contributed matching funds to that being made available by council, and I thank them for their support to deliver this great project for Gembrook. Throughout the design phase of this facility, consultation has been undertaken with the community, and it's gone on for quite a few years actually, by the time we've done the draft plans, etc., and then gone back to the community a number of times. We've consulted with children at schools, all over the place. The staff have been at markets, talking to people. It's been incredible the amount of consultation that's gone into this. We've had online surveys for the playground area of it, and although councillors haven't seen the final selection of the design for the playground part of it, I'm sure that the community will be happy because they're the ones that have voted it in. So I'm looking forward to seeing this project get started. The tender documents has been prepared for the associated construction work, and tenders were advertised on the 30th of March 2019 and closed on the 30th of April 2019. A total of 7 tenders were received, and I thank all those companies that have shown interest in this project. The tenders were evaluated against criteria of as listed in the report, and Warrendale Industries was assessed as being the most suitable and value for money tender. So I thank them for their time, and as I say, I look forward to this project getting started and the final completion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Councillor Jeff Springfield, as a seconder to speak.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to my fellow Rangers Ward Councillor for moving this motion. It is a great project. It's a great project. It's wonderful that we're all contributing equal there. State 0.5, federal 0.5, and council 0.5 a million. So it's going to be a great outcome for not just the general community, but I think surrounding communities will be travelling to use this space as well once it's in operation. It's a great skate space and great effort by our council officers with the community engagement as well. As you all recall, we went through a bit of a process of some concept set plans and some concept ideas, and through that community engagement, the feedback we got was to retain the skate park, increase its size, and council officers responded and delivered on that. So I think it's going to be a wonderful outcome for all once it comes about, and I know it'll be well utilised by the local community up in the hills there. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Any other speakers on the subject? Councillor Ross.
I confer with my fellow councillors that this is an amazing project. To have a leisure park to the value of, we thought it would be 1.5 million, but finishes up being $1.3 million. And it just shows how sometimes there are benefits in having a lot of people move to your area, because you finish up with people who start to look for areas they can spend money in. Out of the federal government, the Building Better Regions Fund, we got $500,000. Out of the Growing Suburbs Fund, because of our population explosion, which is only for interface councils, we got $500,000 as well. Council expected to put in $500,000 into this, but with a very favourable tender, we'll save $183,000 on what we anticipated to put in. And for the people of Gembrook, if anyone had been past their park, it was terrible. In fact, they had to close it down, parts of it in the end, because it was so dilapidated and falling down. It was just terrible. So anyone who lived up there would think they lived in a backwater that just had been left behind, which was really sad. And this will really, I feel, give parents with young children and people who move around the area somewhere to go to that is really a great facility. So I just want to thank my fellow, the ward councillors in the Hills who advocated for this as well. I want to thank our council staff, particularly Kevin Alexander, who did a lot of work around speaking with the community about what they needed and what they would like to see in this facility. And I just encourage anyone that when it's up and going, you know, if you've got little kids, take them up there, have a look. It is a really great piece of work. Anyway, I encourage my fellow councillors to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other speakers on this subject? Councillor Brett Owen and then Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. I support everyone's comments. This upgrade has been an aspiration of all three Rangers Ward councillors and even probably previous Rangers Ward councillors as well. It's definitely something that was definitely needed. Rangers Ward councillors recently had a Connect Cardinia photo shoot up there, and we witnessed firsthand how tired the park is at the moment, and this upgrade will be warmly welcomed. Gembrook is becoming a real destination, as Councillor Springfield did say. This will benefit the wider Cardinia community. It will be a destination. You've got Puff and Billy, you've got fantastic eateries up there in Gembrook, and this will add to the experience for families up there. We note that there's history for this playground particularly, and we know that the previous community groups came together to build what's there at the moment. So I know there's plaques there celebrating the history, so I think it'll be great to capture those and celebrate that history. So if that could be noted, hopefully, when we upgrade this park, that those history items can be sort of celebrated, if that's okay. But yeah, I'm really pleased that we've listened to the community in relation to the skate park. That was clear, and it was great that we amended the draft to the final design to increase the skatable play area or skating area. So I fully support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Any other speakers on this subject? Councillor Brown. Sorry, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank all the other speakers, and congratulations to the Rangers ward councillors for getting such a fine facility in their ward. The other day I had not my granddaughter, but somehow or other she finished up my granddaughter. It was a little kid to come to visit. And, well, yeah, that's a long story, but never mind. When I was going through the council papers, I called up the playground in particular, and I was able to go through it to her with detail and show all of the little facets of something we don't normally do when we look at something. We overall scan it and that type of thing. But when you go into this little not little, it's big. It's tremendous. It's a fantastic area. And I've now got to take her there. So, and I don't mind that because I think Embrook's a great spot. So, is it Embrook or Gembrook? Gembrook's a great spot. So, Mayor, I commend this project, and again, thank you to the officers and also the councillors who have pushed for this and got it for their wards. And I think the important part that come out of it, that Councillor Owen just said, is that we listened to the residents, we consulted, we engaged, as our policy said we should. Thank you, Mayor.
Well said. Any other councillors to speak? I've got to say that I do go to the existing park. I travel along my gravel road to Gembrook, and it's just up the road from me, and so it is a fantastic park. But it's well used, is what I'm saying, because whenever I go up there, drive past there even, it is packed. You cannot move in that park. It's just an amazing park that this is going to be when it gets redeveloped. Of course, the consultation with the communities has been fantastic, nothing short of fantastic, and that's where you get the result. I know there's been a few things taken out of the original details of this park to get it down to the figures where it is, which is a great result for everybody, I think, and so that's working together with partnerships with our community, with our governments, with the funding, working together as a whole community, not just one off here. And I congratulate the Port Ward, the Rangers Ward councillors, that is, for their efforts in getting this down, because I think it's going to be a great result when we see it opened. Thank you. So I'll go back to the mover, which is Letitia Wilmot. Thank you, councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just address a couple of comments that came out of all of that discussion, and thank you everybody for your comments and your support on this. Councillor Owen, you mentioned the plaques that are currently there. I have already spoken with Kevin Alexander about those plaques, and yes, they will be removed before at the beginning of the works, and saved and polished up and repainted so the wording is very clear, and then they'll be reinstated into the park at the end of the construction. And I believe there's a couple of other elements out of the original playground that's also going to be saved and reused into the new park. So yes, so there are elements of the old which will come back into the new. So I think that's a really lovely touch and nod to the community members that were a part of that original project. And everybody's right, this is a really busy park. Even now in its really poor condition, it's still busy. And I remember when this park was first open, how busy it was. People came from miles to this park. So it will be like that again. It's not just a little local park. This is going to be quite a district level park. So I think it's a great outcome for Gembrook. I was at their community meeting a couple of weeks ago, and they were asking about this project and for an update. Because they've got they're really keen to know the timelines of when this is all going to start, and that's still to be determined. Now that we are about to endorse the tender, we'll be able to get those timelines and get them to the community as soon as they are determined. But they're also asking about the provision of toilets while this construction is going on, because the toilets there are pretty much the public toilets for the town. So the staff are working on that as well, to make arrangements to have portable toilets available to the community while this construction's happening. So they, like everybody else, is looking forward to the start and the completion of this project, and let's hope for good weather and we can get started as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors, for your input on this item. It's Been fantastic. Okay, we'll signify in the usual manner. All those for? Carried. We'll move on to item 18. Major Projects Report, as withdrawn by Councillor Brett Owen. Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the report be noted.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Brown. Thank you, Councillor Brown. Thank you, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Brown. As part of the reporting process to Council, this monthly report provides an update of the status of major projects and strategies in progress. It includes an update on major projects, capital works, special charge schemes, asset management and strategies current at the time of this report. A couple of weeks ago, a number of councillors visited Deep Creek Reserve. And it was amazing to just get an update of how that reserve is progressing and what an awesome reserve it will be with the All Abilities Playground and the Environmental Centre, the CEC Nursery. But it's getting there. It's progressing well. So it was great to see that in action in construction. I just want to turn to the area in the report that says the Kenilworth Avenue construction, and I do have a question to our new General Manager of Infrastructure and Environment. Thank you, General Manager. Obviously we're all frustrated about Kenilworth. Councillors, we get emails, almost every day on the state of Kenilworth Avenue. Can you please update Council about what are we doing in the interim? How do we make sure that the surface is satisfactory in the interim, and how are we going with the negotiations with the contractor and the developer for Kenilworth? Thank you, General Manager.
Through you, Mayor. I can advise that we've been undertaking a range of works to improve the surface, and my officers have reported that 1,500 tonnes of material have been introduced into the eastern end of Kenilworth to improve the performance of the surface, so that to alleviate immediate safety concerns. In regards to the broader issue around the renegotiation and completion of the project, I'm advised that the developers entered negotiations with the contractor concerned to resolve the matter. I don't have any specifics at this point in time, but I'll certainly provide Council with an update as soon as that information becomes available to me. Obviously, it's regrettable, and we certainly don't appreciate the impost in our community in that local area.
Thank you. It's just really important. I know that we're doing as much as we can do, but it's getting to a stage almost 2 years after work started that we're back to zero. And it's really unsatisfactory for those residents. So thank you for your work on that, and I know the CEO continues to work on that issue. So thank you, councillors. I just want to highlight those couple of matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. To you, Councillor Brown. Not to second, speak.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Owen, for moving this report. It's quite an intensive report. There's lots going on that's going to benefit the community, and just looking through them, I too went to the Deep Creek facility there with the, what is it, is a lyre bird? Dragonfly. Well, it was hard to decide what it was really because it was stuck up in the air. But that's going to be a fantastic playground. I'm really disappointed why it's not open now, but I'm told it's because of the lack of public toilets. Until the public toilets are finished, we can't put anybody open that up to the public because little kiddies, There's plenty going on with regard to pavilions at Coralline, Cooey-Rupp, and I'd like to mention the secondary college and the primary school at Cooey-Rupp in partnership with the Education Department. Council is upgrading the football ground at the secondary college, including lights, drainage and what have you, and a small pavilion, demountable or pavilion, I forget what it was called again now, but that's going to be shared by the school and also by our community, the sporting community in Cooey-Rupp, which is really great. It's a win-win. We're having trouble getting a second oval. We really need a second oval, and we're still working on it, but it's getting further and further away. This will take place in the meantime. The pavilions will be great because the pavilions we're looking at replacing are over 60 years old and they're well past their use by date. The other one I'd like to speak about, and excuse me if I'm Kooyurup-centric here, but the tennis club upgrade. We had 2 courts that were virtually unplayable. Now we have 4 courts. The tennis club is excited. We had a lot of people move away. Kooyurup is one of the strongest teams in West Gippsland, one of the strongest clubs in West Gippsland. Dwindled away to quite a low number of members, but just enough to keep it going. The kids couldn't play on the court because once it got wet, they couldn't hit the ball over the court because it got waterlogged. Now with this new tennis facility, 4 courts, a fantastic facility if you come and have a look at it, and also the conversion of the old swimming pool club rooms into club rooms for the tennis club, which they're looking forward to. The elephant in the room that nobody seems to talk about is the Lang Lang recreation facility at Caldermead. That is going to be a fantastic facility. The grounds are fantastic. The pavement all the way around the grounds, which I hope could be a standard for all of the other grounds within the Shire. And the building that's going up now is the side walls have gone up. That's going to produce a huge community space. As Councillor Owen said, a community space won't be just for the football club, it'll be for the community. I've had a lot of comments about why it's out that far. I've had a lot of comments on it's not justified. I've had a lot of comments on what are you doing about it. I can assure everybody that facility was questioned every step of the way by council. We inquired about the location, we inquired about the usage, we inquired about all sorts of things, the maintenance, who's going to look after it, security, all of those things. And the CEO at the time gave us assurances, and I'm confident that we asked the right questions. And I wish Lang Lang all the very best with their facility because they're going to really enjoy it. It is fantastic. So if once it's open, I urge everybody to get out and have a look at it. And of course, we've got our road renewal and resurfacing program, which is something that we can look forward to. So all in all, Mayor, there's heaps going on, and I'm looking forward to a lot of these things coming to fruition, particularly the cultural centre, the upgrade of the art space in the cultural centre. I think that is going to be a real winner. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Any other speakers on this subject of major projects? Councillor Ross.
I think I echo the highlights that my fellow councillors have raised. Another one that will be really important to the pedestrian linkages with inside Cardinia, particularly Pakenham area. The Tumut Creek, for any of those who walk along that pathway, going back 5 or 6 years ago, there wasn't a path that continued all the way from Henry Road all the way through to the highway. It took quite a long while to get the linkage up between the two. Now that the linkage is there, where it goes underneath the railway, where kids used to walk up and over the top of the railway lines to get across. Council built footpaths as far as we could meet until it came to VicTrack had to build underneath the railway line, which they did in the end, which was fabulous. But then you have the issue that there's that many estates there now that to get across the creek, we have one getting older bridge right at the north end, and we have no bridge at the other south end. Well, through DCPs, through developer funds, we've been able to come up with enough money to rebuild the bridge up near the highway, and there will be a new bridge down the other end, so then people in the different estates can walk across or ride to school, ride their bikes or go for a walk. And that's a really important thing for people because when you've got to go the long way round, often kids will walk the shortest way that they can go. But if you give them a really good access to ride their bikes, their scooters, and people to go for a walk, it just makes it a more livable area. So for the ratepayers, it's going to cost you nothing to build those. It's going to come out of the developer contributions. So I can't wait for those to happen and be able to use those. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other speakers on these major projects? before I go back to Councillor Owen, I would like to mention on that, and thank you, Councillor Brown, for your mention of the Lang Lang Rec Reserve. It is a fantastic project. It just shows you what can happen when you get $4.3 million put into a reserve like that as a partnership from Greg Hunt, the member for Flinders, and it's not actually in his area anymore, believe it or not. And not the Bendigo Bank, the Lang Lang Community Bank were great drivers of this particular project. Without those two particular items, this would never have got off the ground, never got to its point. And the other thing I want to make a point about, that I was speaking to the Community Bank Lang Lang recently, and they're going to put more into this reserve, and so down the track. So therefore, it's going to be a fantastic district regional type service. It's just going to be, and you're 100% right, Councillor Brown. It's a really great facility we're going to have in our council. That's for sure. Okay, so we'll go to a vote. I'll go to the mover. I was getting ahead of myself, wasn't I, Councillor Owen? I'll go back to the mover.
Thank you, Mayor. Just following up on Lang Lang, the Port Ward councillors and I met with the Casey Cardinia human-powered vehicles. They're wanting to use a venue in Cardinia for their events, and they are very interested in the Lang Lang Recreation Reserve precinct, and they came to us, so council officers working with them to see if that reserve can meet their needs, because as stated before, they has fully asphalted right around the reserves, and that's probably, I haven't seen that at a rec reserve in Cardinia yet. So that is a major asset to have that asphalt around that. So that is a circular and sort of track that the human-powered vehicle can use. So hopefully that can be another user for that reserve, which is a great thing. Just in relation to the road renewal and resurfacing program, and I've raised concerns about this program previously when we adopted the attender, and I still need to be satisfied that that program does work when you are using that spray sealing, reseal, because I continue to get complaints from residents, particularly in Beaconsfield, that doesn't seem to work, and it's messy, untidy. So I'll be working with the officers to get a better understanding, so I can tell the community why we're using that product, because you get criticised as a council that we've got these unsealed networks and we're resealing already sealed roads. There's a reason why we're doing it, because you need to protect the asset. But when it comes to a condition after that and it looks unsatisfactory in residents' minds, we need to do better in that space, whether explaining why we do it, why it looks that way, why it's cheaper, and then we can do more roads, but we need to do more explaining in that. So working with officers, it'll be great to sit down with the general managers so we can work through that. It was just one thing that I continue to get comments about those resurfaced roads. But yeah, I move the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowan. Okay, we'll move to a vote now. All those in favour? For? Carried. Okay. That concludes the discussion on the items withdrawn. Can I please have a motion to adopt the recommendations of the balance of the items listed? Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Wilmot. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Springfield. All those in favour? Carried. Reports and minutes of committees. I note that several reports from various committees have been tabled in addition to the minutes of recent council briefing sessions, and these are available if any councillor wishes to view them. Council reports. Councillors, any matters to report? Councillor Ryan.
Through you, Mayor. I'll keep it brief as I try to. Just a few things that I've been involved in over the last month. Visiting senior sits, as you all know, that senior sits are very important in my aspirations and getting things done for them. So going around and speaking with them and seeing what their needs are. So I usually visit them once a month, but I got told on Thursday that I haven't visited enough. So I made a note of that and made sure I need to go back there. U3A, there's work happening there, a project that we'd worked on about space and utilising space for them. So that's in the project in the making now. So, we had a little meeting with a gentleman who builds tiny houses. That was an interesting conversation, wasn't it, Tracy? And an interesting meeting to find out a little bit more about utilising space for people that are on low incomes and what we can do. So that's in the process of improvement for that gentleman. So. The Honourable Edward O'Donoghue, we had an afternoon tea with him and the Mayor was there as well. And it was to farewell the winners of the 2018 Harold Bold Memorial Award and the launch of the 2019 competition winners. It's to do with the Kokoda Walk and a very, very important walk. But what we've discovered is there's not enough youth that are really seem to show the interest. So we're bowed together that we're going to try and get around to more schools and educate them a little bit on how important it is and how important it was for two of our diggers that were there. One turned 100, didn't he? 100 a couple of days before afternoon tea and still going strong. He was the one that reminded me I hadn't been the senior sit, so he keeps me in line. And the other one's 97 going on 98. Wonderful men to talk to, just sitting down and hearing about their journey and that they get a lot out of seeing our youth being involved in the Kokoda Walk. So I think that, we need to promote that a lot more for the youth in our area. And some of the most exciting things I've been involved in as well is I went to an event to find out more about wheelchair dancing and playing tennis in a wheelchair. So if you're not really experiencing it, it's quite unique to keep yourself in that wheelchair, even though you got a seatbelt on. When it's dancing, you go back too far. Well, geez, you hope there's a chair behind you to stop you falling backwards. But usually on the night there was people there to make sure that we're all safe, the ones that weren't experienced. So, but it was unique to have a better understanding about people with disabilities and what they cope with and what they're able to do. And my vision is to try and promote that type of sport in our area. Dancing, I think I'll stick to just keeping dancing on my legs at this stage. Tennis, well, being short, I just couldn't reach up high enough to get the ball. But I think they were too clever for me. So I'm looking forward to the future in working with these organisations to see what they might promote for hopefully our area in the future. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Thank you. Any other reports from councillors? Councillor Ross.
Today I'd like to report that myself, the Mayor and Councillor Brett Owen attended the funeral of Margaret Mitchell. Jack Mitchell was our Senior Citizen of the Year in 2014. And you got a little bit of an insight from a lady who was the rock behind Jack. If you ever saw Jack with Margaret, they were always holding hands. They went almost everywhere together. And she was the rock behind all the amazing things that he did and a great supporter. Jack was one of the main founders in the rebuild of the factory for 4Cs. He raised funds. He got different contractors in to help build it, mostly for nothing. He also was one of the board members of the Cardinia Foundation. He was a judge perennially on the Pakenham Business Awards. He also has done over 100 parkrun volunteering sessions. He's a mentor at the local high school, and if you got to hear about the lady behind the man today, and you understood why he could be the best he could be, because she supported him right from the very beginning. And I must say, for Jack, Margaret was the love of his life right from the word go, and she will be sorely missed by her children and family. And I must say, as a thank you on behalf of council for all the stuff that you've done on council, and we share your loss in Margaret, and we think of you today. Thank you.
Is that all, Councillor Ross? Is that all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably overshadows everything else
Yes, it would do.
in importance.
It did do. Councillor Brown. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. I attended the Coorap Lions Club handover dinner, where they handed out the cheques from the people that man their opportunity shop, which most of the organisations, I think there were about 11 of them, got just on $2,500 each, which was a great result. They're struggling for members at the moment, so they've got a bit of a membership drive going with the Meet the New Residents dinner coming up in a couple of weeks. Went to Deep Creek, pouring rain, muddy. Fantastic establishment there, but and I can't wait for that to open. And on Sunday we went to the anniversary of the Sikh Temple in Officer. You were there, Mayor. Our CEO was there, and Councillor Springfield was there. We sat through the prayers. Well, I must admit, with me, it was a bit hard sitting on the floor there for half an hour. It wasn't hard sitting there, getting up was the trouble, but I had some Blaze Aid people there, so they helped me up, which was good. We had to take our shoes off, which was respectful, I guess. But then we went to have lunch, and we walked about 30 metres, and we had to take our shoes off again to have lunch. So that was a bit of a challenge, particularly seeing the carpet was wet. But all in all, I congratulate the Sikh community for what they do and what they aspire to do. I think they're an asset to our community, and we enjoyed the day. I hope everybody else did, and thank you, Mayor. That'll do me.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Anyone else? Councillor Wilmot.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick ones. I mentioned earlier that I was at the Emerald Lake Park for one of our regular updates on the weed management project that they've been doing over the last 7 years. Just want to give all councillors a bit of a heads up that the next meeting will probably be in about September, and they plan on inviting all councillors to join in a walk around the park to have a good look at the work that they've done. It is quite remarkable what they've been doing up there, so hopefully it'll be a nice day and you'll all be able to enjoy that with us. And even if it's a wet day, it'd still come because it's still a beautiful park. I just want to mention also that on Friday afternoon, my ward colleagues and the Mayor joined me at the Cockatoo Community House for the relaunch of this centre. The Cockatoo Neighbourhood House closed about 2 years ago, and it's taken us a couple of years to get an auspicing body to take on the management, and we've luckily been able to partner with Task Force, and they're a great organisation, and I'm sure we're going to go a lot of way with them helping. They'll establish a new committee of management and get them up and running. We've got a new coordinator there, Gabby, who is just full of enthusiasm and great ideas. She's already put together a program for next term's courses, and some of those, well, the enrolments haven't actually opened, but she's already got a wait list on some of those courses, so that's pretty encouraging. So I wish them all luck. They will be, oh, the lights are going out, it's time to go home. Maybe a bedtime story. And the community house is just they're going to have an open day on Sunday for the broader community so that they can actually launch their program. And lastly, I just want to make mention that the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor and I all attended the Casey Business Leaders Dinner on Friday night because the focus was on tourism, so I was there as one of the directors on our tourism board. Kathy Main, who is our chairperson, was one of the guest speakers, and then Kathy and Michael Johnson, who is a board member as well, were part of a panel of discussion on tourism. It was a good night, and it was really good to get some Just a little hint of what we've been doing over the last 12 months since the board started. There'll be a launch of our branding and marketing strategy in the next couple of months, but those in attendance did get just a little sneak peek of what we've been planning over the last 12 months. So lots of things happening, and yeah, just keep September open in your diaries because you might get a nice walk through the park.
Thank you, Councillor. Walk up the park is a lot better than lead up the creek, isn't it? Councillor Owen, did you want some? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in the last month, I attended the Pakenham Rotary. They invited me along because when I was Mayor, they raised a request of what council is doing with their old playground equipment. And it's taken this time to come up with a program. And council is definitely very helping Pakenham Rotary renew the playgrounds because unfortunately due to safety laws, we cannot, it's really hard to recycle older playground equipment just because of our safety. So working with Pakenham Rotary, Council is renewing these playgrounds and sending them to third world countries such as Cambodia and so forth. So well done to the Pakenham Rotary. I believe our first playground that will be renewed is the one in Lang Lang, Dick, the reserve. So it will be dismantled piece by piece, screw by screw, and put back together by Rotary in those areas. So fantastic, and it's great that our Shire is contributing to that program because young people in those areas, this will make a huge difference. On the weekend, the Mayor and I attended the Fight MND community fundraiser. It was such a great day at Tumac Reserve. Well done to Leah Bryant, her two boys, and also the group of friends called Craig's Crew. And it's an amazing story. Leah lost her husband a few years ago to MND, and she wanted to raise money for that cause. And it was great to have Beck Danaher there, who's the daughter of Mr. Danaher, and it was just a great day. And I was lucky enough to ride the slide. I was representing my son's basketball team, Beaconsfield Bandits, who it was just great. All the community sporting clubs were getting together behind this cause. And it was great to see basketball people, footy teams, your opposition normally on a normal day come together. So we don't know the final amount, but it was just great. It also extended to the basketball games at Cardinia Life on the weekend where a lot of the teams, the whole teams were wearing MND socks and parents wearing beanies and so forth. So well done. And thank you, Councillor Ross, for talking about Margaret Mitchell. I just also want to note that the recent passing of Billy Holmes from Emerald RSL. He was a real legend, one of the few surviving World War II veterans, but he was a real legend, and he's now joining his wife Erna in heaven. She was a car too, Erna. She was amazing. So just want to acknowledge that. For the Access and Inclusion Committee, that's a committee that Councillor Schilling and I are on. We're progressing with a number of the upgrades that we're going towards the end of the financial year, and some of the access upgrades are installation of the pathway at Living Learning to the community garden, the Gembrook Community Centre, which is the installation of automatic opening doors at the entrance, car park lighting and upgrade and main entrance. And anyone knows that facility, it's really hard if you've got if you're an older person or you've got a pram or in your wheelchair, it's really hard to get into these double doors, quite heavy. So that's going to be changed to an automatic door. Same with the Courier Up senior citizens, that's going into an automatic door as well as part of the program in relation to the Garfield Bowling Club, a car park upgrade, entrance access ramp, an accessible toilet, side walkway upgrade, and some changes to the interior doors, and also the Lang Lang Memorial Hall, new accessible car park signage and line marking. All that work for around about 150,000, and those changes, those upgrades will make a huge difference in improving access to these facilities for our residents. Just wanted to thank our outgoing staff member, our Metro Access Officer, Marcia Cadaret. She's worked for Cardinia Shire for over 15 years, so she's leaving our Shire. I just want to thank her. She's a very passionate officer. I've seen her in action when she's challenging her fellow council officers who don't, sometimes didn't agree with her thinking, but she was always about improving access for all. And I just want to thank her. I wish her well. And as I said in the budget discussions, a new role will be created, which will be a council-funded role. So I just wanted to thank Marcia. And I'm sure Councillor Schilling, if he was in the room, he would be doing the same too. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Anyone else to speak? No? No takers. Yes, I'd just like to mention also, it wasn't all that fun on Saturday. It was a bit cold and wet, and it was icy bar, so it wasn't all that good. But it was a great event, though, a really well-run event, and it was really great to be involved in that fantastic fundraiser. I'd also like to mention Max Murray. Max Murray was the RSL president of Narnagoon for many, many years, and he passed away the other day at 83. And I did have a phone call yesterday from the RSL people to thanking us for sending some flowers off to his wife in sympathy for her loss. So it was losing these legends all over the place, which is sad. Okay, no more reports. Presentations of petitions. Have we got any petitions to present? We might have one. Have we, Councillor Ryan?
Yes, we have, through you, Mayor. It's in reference to the petition is for the Cardinia Shire to provide funding for a public toilets to be installed at the Rotary Park, Pakenham, and not placed the 180,000 cost on volunteers. This council park is home to Park Run and many great facilities used by locals. Toilets are needed to be installed urgently at the cost to council. So this is the petition I have to present to council.
Thank you, Councillor. So you're going to table that petition to Mr. Evans?
Yes, I will.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. I don't know what happens when the doors slam and the volume goes up on the microphones. Must be getting late, I think. Okay, and thank you to the gallery for being so patient. It's been a pretty long night tonight. So we've got up to the stage of community question time. We've received 2 questions from Tony O'Hara. I see Mr. O'Hara in the gallery. Nice to see you, Tony. Thanks for sitting in the front row where I can eye to eye for you. I'll direct your questions to the Manager of Governance, Mr. Evans. Mr. Evans, can you read the questions and the answers for Mr. O'Hara? Thank you.
Yeah, by all means, Mr. Mayor. And thank you very much for your questions, Tony. Thanks, Tony. Tony's first question reads, as a regular at council meetings, I look through the agenda items prior to and at the council meetings. I'm constantly frustrated by the low resolution scanning or saving of documents, making them unreadable, e.g. page 5 of the item on tonight's agenda. The question is, there any reason why the documents, especially maps or scanned documents, are scanned at low resolution, and can they be provided in an easily readable format for the future? Tony, I agree that at times some of the documents attached to reports for council meetings available on the web are difficult to read, I acknowledge that, due to the low resolution of the document. This is particularly relevant to documents provided as a scanned image and not a separate document. We are working with our software supplier to see what we can do to improve this situation. So I acknowledge your concerns and we're working on it. Tony's next question, Mr. Mayor, is there any reason why referred to documents on the agenda are not presented as searchable documents, such as the council plan, draft budget, and even the library plan and draft budget 2019-20, which is publicly available online at the Casey Cardinia Library Service website, as presented tonight? And thank you for your question, Tony. The documents loaded to the web are in a searchable PDF format, It may depend on what PDF reader you are using to access. Perhaps we could discuss the matter after the meeting and I'll show you how you can access them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Evans, and thank you, Mr. O'Hara, for your questions. I hope that's satisfactory. It will be after the meeting, I no doubt. We've received a question from Nisag Modi. Is Nisag in the building? He's not here. Okay. Well, we still respond to his question in writing and get off to him as well. Thank you. Finally, we've received 3 questions from Ms. Gloria O'Connor. I can't see Ms. Gloria O'Connor in the building because she's hidden by Wayne. I know. But I respect she's in the building. Thank you. I refer your first 2 questions to Tracy Parker to read the question and answer. Thank you, Tracy.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, Gloria, I didn't see you either. I was thinking that you weren't here. You have to wave. So the first question you put forward this evening was, will you please advise when it will be possible for some consultation between responsible council staff and members of the Berwick-Pakenham Historical Society regarding the forward plans for the Pakenham Museum and its surrounding area? Those responsible, many who come from Berwick, put in a lot of time and effort managing the museum and its contents and providing information for visitors and interesting programs. Common opinion is that little attention is given to this important location and its important value to the community. So thanks for your question, Gloria. In regards to this particular building, the work that the Strategic Planning Department has been doing around the Pakenham Activity Centre strategy. As part of that, it includes an urban design framework, and that urban design framework does provide a statement around that whole gateway precinct and what works we would be proposing around that old Shire building and the Pakenham Museum. So it talks about in the statement, and this particular document will be going out on exhibition in July, so there certainly will be the opportunity for the Historical Society and residents of the Pakenham area to make submissions to this document. But it does talk about that encompassing the main entrance to the activity centre from the west, about looking at the elements of the historical building, in particular the large established native trees and the creek line. It's acknowledged that it is a gateway area. We could improve the views of the heritage building and increase their utilisation, that there's opportunities to improve the connectivity between the elements of the site through the introduction of features such as decking to span the creek, or new pathways and a crossing to link both sides of the gateway. So, as I said, there is some plans in place in that urban design framework, and they will go out in July for consultation. So we'll make sure that you're made aware of that when that goes out. Okay, and the second question from Gloria was that now that some good recognition is being given to the importance of preserving environmental areas of Cardinia Shire, and intention is to provide increased funding, what is expected to be the result of the Cardinia railway towns and plans for urban expansion through Nunagoon, Tynong, Garfield and Bunyip, which will inevitably impact on existing environment with the loss of green wedge, additional traffic congestion, pollution, etc. by the development of mini suburbs with businesses and industry. So again, thank you on that one. It's certainly not our intentions with the Railway Towns document going out to the community for there be major increases to any of those railway towns. At the moment, the document that's out on exhibition, which we're having consultation with those township communities, is really about just establishing a baseline or an information collection about what really exists in all of those towns. So the particular document doesn't say what level of expansion should actually occur in the towns. So if you look at Garfield and Bunyip, they already have urban growth boundaries around them, so they are already restricted by their size. So it's really only Nunagoon and Tynong that we'd be looking at. And we certainly had a number of conversations with those township committees, making them aware that the current government is not keen on introducing expansions of rural towns within the Green Wedge, but we're looking more at what sort of advocacy tools we can have in place for them going forward should a future government be favourable to looking at expansion of those towns. So we certainly would not want to ever see the railway towns get to the point that we have major traffic congestion or anything like that, because they have a certain character, and that character is very important to the people who live within it, but also important to the wider community as well. So the actual document that's out there for exhibition at the moment is really just creating that baseline information, ensure that we have accurately reflected what those towns are about. But any further work that we do on those townships will continue to go through public consultation, and people will certainly be able to make submissions on those.
Thank you, Ms Parker. Ms Parker, of course, is the General Manager of Livable Communities, and it's nice to have you on board in that position, Tracy. Is it okay? Do you want those answers in writing, Mrs O'Connor? Yes, is that possible, Mr Evans, or Tracy, or both? Thank you. Finally, Mrs O'Connor, I'll refer your third question to the General Manager of Infrastructure and Environment, Mr Peter Benezik, to respond. This is the first question answer for Mr Benezik tonight, so I'll ask you to the question and answer. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I'll read out the question first. What progress has been made with the application for clean fill on the Latter Road property in Narnagoon? I can report that Town Planning Permit application number T10774 for use of the land and works associated with the disposal of fill at 21 Latter Road, Narnagoon is proposed to be heard at the 2nd of July Town Planning meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Is that satisfactory? Thank you, Ms O'Connor. You don't need that in writing, do you? Because you'll be at the meeting, I hope, the Town Planning meeting. Okay, thank you. There is a reminder that councillors and staff, including myself, will be available after the meeting if you wish to discuss the responses provided by our fantastic staff here to these questions. So that concludes tonight's proceedings. Thank you all for your attendance, particularly the gallery, and I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.